Sorry.
Yeah. Nah, it's all good.
Do you want me to send it to you?
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
What? Uh-huh.
We ready?
We ready? There we are. All right.
Alrighty.
Now I gotta go into.
I'm very actually, yeah, before we obviously get into Andor, I'm curious to see what your thoughts of
Oh yeah, because we haven't really spoken about it, have we?
Thunderbolts. Yeah, we haven't really,
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
actually really upset about the box office numbers for it, to be honest. It's, it has made me upset how it is not doing that well money financial wise, even though it's objectively one of the better ones that we've gotten in the recent years.
Yes.
It's a shame. And then
It's a
and
shame.
people talk about, oh, give directors more creative license. And, so this one was very creative and, different. And then it doesn't do well at the box office. Then, like, let's go back to our cheesy. He's behind me, isn't he?
Yeah. Um. Sorry, I'm just trying to concentrate on this.
You can't, yeah, type in.
Hang on, hang on. Keep talking about Thunderbolts while I zone you out a little bit.
That's all right. I'll give the viewers who maybe if they are on or not or watching after or
Yeah. Hello
listening
to
after.
everyone.
Um, I generally thought this movie. I had good expectations. I wouldn't say high, but good before going in because the reviews were coming out that was actually decent, and everyone was saying how it's a bit of a sleeper hit, which I actually do agree with. My overall main criticism, without getting too specific, because obviously this podcast here is obviously going to be more focused on our Andor finale, which is exciting. Um, but I actually didn't. I felt like it went like quick, like so quick. The climax was almost done in 2 seconds. Like once they established themselves as like a team, I guess the Thunderbolts, before Yelena went into. Oh no! Right as like Yelena went into the void, basically there was only like it felt like there was only like 10 minutes left in the film. Like I don't know why we didn't get more of Sentry or like we got enough of the Void, I think, but we didn't get like barely any of Sentry. It would be nice to see a bit more of a development of him because he's obviously gonna. They said he's gonna be pivotal, or not pivotal, but he's gonna play a role in Doomsday. And it's like
Oh,
I this would have been a well, he's in it obviously, but they said he's gonna be impactful in some way, obviously because he's too overpowered. But like when you look back at the film in terms of set pieces and like locations, it was basically the vault, um, Bucky rescuing slash capturing them, and then back into the city, and that was it. It was like three actual places, and that was it. And I felt like it was a missed opportunity. I know for Bucky, we've already seen a lot of his dark past, but it was a missed opportunity not seeing the other Thunderbolts kind of avoid because I feel like that kind of would have boosted and promoted, I guess, not promoted, but boosted my attachment and care for the lesser characters I still really don't care about, like Ghost. Like, I think Ghost's design is sick and I think she's an okay character. But for example, everyone was raving about how they already care about the Thunderbolts or New Avengers team, which I think is hilarious, by the way. New Avengers team being already more likable and more connected than the Avengers, which I actually agree with like Yelena because Black Widow was kind of done pretty horribly early on, but also, like let's be real, her character when she first came in was just very over sexualized and, she didn't really have much motive until her sacrifice and everything and her own movie, which was after she was dead in present day. So it's kind of like, well, they didn't really do her justice that well, which is could be a hot take, but a lot of people are now realizing too after seeing Elena's kind of arc. But like Elena, John Walker, Bucky, obviously, and even Alexei to an extent, I think I connect with them a lot more than a lot of like when I watched the first Avengers movie. Like I really didn't care about Thor back then. You know what I mean? Like when who was coming in acting all dumb, I was like, but but like with Ghost and stuff, like Ghost specifically, which I know I'm targeting her, I guess, but she didn't have anything really to do in this movie apart from have some cool visual like stunt things. She didn't have much of a personality. She didn't do like, and that's why I'm saying if we had like a void thing of each of the characters, it would have made you connect with them because you would feel bad for them. You would resonate with them, not just Yelena. I feel like this movie should have been Yelena and Bob plus Bob. That should have been the movie name, realistically, because you follow obviously Yelena the whole time and everything, but then Bob's obviously the main plot device. So I think the movie was a bit too short. I think it could have been, I wouldn't say masterpiece, but it could have been an easily 9.5 out of 10 if I think they went a bit further into it. But honestly, really, aside from that, I think the movie as a rating for me, I would still probably give it like a it would be between an 8 or an 8.5 because it had good set pieces. The cinematography was great. The story message was fantastic. And I think the plot and the concept behind it was really good. And the plot twist basically showing what the asterisk always has meant, which is now going to cause another almost internal civil war, I think, for Doomsday. Well, obviously went on a bit of a rant. Cooper was just getting himself ready. um, but yeah, I had a great time with it, and that's why I'm really disappointed that the box office numbers is literally set to be just a bit better than the Marvels or same as how the Marvels did. And I do think it's not because obviously the quality of the movie. I think it's because of how everything has been with Marvel movies lately, and maybe the fatigue, I guess you could say, of it. But this doesn't deserve this. If you guys are watching this, I mean, I kind of gave a bit of a spoiler, but please go watch it, support it because it's actually a creative movie that is a bit different, and I'm glad that it's different. I'm glad it's not the usual copy paste kind of stuff.
Very
Mm.
good. Um, I will keep mine very succinct. I thought it was okay.
Hmm.
It wasn't amazing. It wasn't the worst movie you've ever seen in your life.
Mm.
I think they were saying like you were saying obviously it was about the same as Marvel's. I think it was performing under Brave New World, which is kind of fucking insane
Yeah.
because
Well, Red Hulk.
yeah, Red Hulk was yeah.
That's probably
Um
why. Yeah.
so yeah, I thought it did have some good character moments. I do agree with Ghost. I really wish that she had a bit more to do besides just
Mm.
um
Phase
eliminate someone that we will not talk about
that
because
everyone knew kind of before
everyone knows.
going in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really have a lot to comment on. I was kind of by the end, I'm like, yeah, that was a bit of fun. I know I don't like to make post-credit scenes the main topic of my discussion, but the post-credit scene was probably the most world building we've done in Marvel for a good
Since
like 5 or 6
yeah.
years.
Since we saw Thanos first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see how it all relates, and obviously we're getting Fantastic Four soon. Actually, 2 months,
Mm.
which is
Yeah.
crazy. So
Oh,
we'll be interested.
to kind of go off your thing quickly before
Mm.
we head into Andor. The reason why I think you I'm not going to speak for you, but that why you think it's like okay, not like the best film that you've ever seen. The reason why I've got this idea that I think it's really good is because the director and all the cast members, including Florence Pugh, also said that this movie, in when they were making it, they had the intent that it would be like an indie like A24 heist, like spy kind of thing. Because if you think about it, it is weird. It doesn't really have much of a plot. It's a lot of characters no one really cares about, but it works, and that's why I kind of like it because it's not a big Marvel movie, and it doesn't really have much connections to, apart from like obviously like the obvious stuff, but it does feel like almost its own thing amongst the cascading bubble of all like Infinity War and Spider-Man going into space and all this kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of like it because it is a smaller scale one, but it's done like that's how I'd envision like a street level film to be. You know what I mean? Like imagine like street level like Punisher, Daredevil, Moon Knight or something, just fighting a thing and then being like, yeah, we're the heroes for the day or something. That's just how I'd vision it.
Yeah, I think
Hmm.
that's valid. I think that's very valid. All right. Welcome to everyone who is checking out the live stream on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
now with us, or to everyone who is going to check out the podcast a little bit later on all platforms. Very proud to say that we are on all
Mm-hmm.
platforms. Yeah, so obviously we've t spoken a bit about Thunderbolts, but the main thing that we've been focusing on for the last few weeks, the thing that
Mm-hmm.
has captivated us, the thing that you guys have been tuning in to check out is Andor season 2. And
Mm.
I just want to say, and you can speak about this as well,
Yeah.
but and I don't want to speak on behalf of you, but I'm also
Mm-hmm.
going to say this on behalf of both of us.
Mm.
just a huge shout out to the cast and the crew of this show who
Hmm.
just went over and above to bring us the highest quality show we have gotten in, well, I'm not going to say in a long time, but ever.
Yeah.
The story aside, regardless of how good it was, week to week or episode to episode, the
Mm.
quality was there every single time. The attention to detail, the costumes, the writing, it was all there. And that's what makes this show so special. So a
Hmm.
huge shout out and thank you to Tony Gilroy. Thank you to Diego Luga. Diego Luna, sorry, I
Luca.
got that up. Luca. Luca Skywalker?
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, Diego Luna. So thank you to those two who just absolutely carried the show. And it's sad that it's over. It is very sad that it's
Mm.
over, but I suppose we can reminisce fondly on what this show delivered and
Hmm.
some of its absolute standouts, highlights. I personally think this has set the standard for Star Wars television. I don't know if you would agree, but just
Mm.
yeah, I've 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 used so many positive words for this show that I don't have any more to use. So
Yeah, that's
just
fair enough.
on behalf of us, and you can speak about it as well. Yeah, it's just this show has meant a lot to us, and
Hmm.
yeah, thank you to the
Yep.
cast and the crew.
I'll agree to an extent. The only part I'm a bit divided on is how it set the bar for other Star Wars projects. So the reason why I think this feels so special is because it's not the same as all the others. If all the other kind of projects within Star Wars became like this, then it would just not feel any sort of special or uniqueness. And I think the main thing that we can take away from this is that if every project had this level of writing, or at least an actual story fledged out, like fleshed out, not fledged, fleshed out that actually had a purpose, then I agree. But for shows like, I don't know, the reason why it works so well is because there's no Jedi, there is no Force really, there is no. It's a minimalistic, it's a very grounded story. If you put this kind of show into an Ahsoka or something with like Thrawn and everything, Thrawn will work. The evil side will work 100%. But in terms of the Jedi and stuff, imagine a slow fight scene with a Jedi just igniting a lightsaber and going like, because realistically, the action in this show is not that fast paced. It's not that mystical. It's not that, it's just a person firing a gun. It's a person barrel like jumping over something. You
I very much disagree.
argue, go. I'm ready.
Well, recency, Gorman. Yes, it was a lot of shooting,
Guns,
but that was the fight between
robots.
Andor and Cyril and
Yeah.
Kay. One Way Out. Yes, a lot of shooting, but it was the going up the tower
I'm
and
telling you, man, it's
escaping.
not, but it's not like what I'm trying to say. It's not like
It's not mystical, I agree,
not bounty.
but
It's not
it's not.
anything we've seen in Mandalorian. It's not. It's just humans. It's just humans doing. You could see that happening in our real world. Maybe not a droid throwing someone into a wall, but you know what I mean. Like that's probably the only. Remove the KX droids. You see people hand to hand combat. You see that before, but even the hand to hand combat is not. Aside from the Cyril and Andor fight, every other thing that you've seen of it is not that fast paced. Chirrut in Rogue One is an exemption because that's actually more of a mystical kind of Star Wars esque element. But it wouldn't. What I'm trying to say is that the pacing of the show and the style of the show would definitely not work for anything that's related to the main
Probably not.
Skywalker saga. And I don't think I would want that. The reason why the originals felt special is because they had those sci-fi elements. This show's not really sci-fi. It's more of a spy grounded what's it called? Yeah, a spy political thriller kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's why it is special. I'm not going to take away from it or any way, but I definitely don't think it's something to say set the bar high for. I reckon it would be set the bar high for writing and in terms of having a vision to actually put into intuition. But I don't think if every project was like this, I don't think it would work realistically speaking, and it would also diminish how special this is. So
And yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I think you do raise a good point, and I think this is a question we've asked on just
Mm.
like to each other and on the podcast many times as well, is what is Star Wars? And I
Mm.
feel like certainly this series kind of blurred the line between what Star Wars is,
Mm.
but also it's such a subjective thing.
It is very
Star Wars can
subjective.
be so different to
Mm.
so many people.
Mm.
And like, yes, there's the commonality, there's the themes, there's the characters,
Good
there's
versus
the
evil. Yeah.
planets that are gonna naturally be the same for everyone, and that's what determines what Star Wars is. But in terms of how it's presented, whether it's
Mm.
a political thriller, whether it's a
Action. Yeah.
huge action adventure sort of show or movie, like they're both Star Wars shows, but what feels more Star Wars to people? So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just it's asking that question and
Hmm.
figuring it. And you obviously, I know
Yeah.
your perspective and you
Mm.
understand mine. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Well,
interesting
yeah.
to continue to ask that question.
Because just to finalize kind of that thought, like this is a big hot take, and I know you're going to go crazy on this. I love Andor. Andor is amazing. You know what I think feels more like Star Wars
Oh
in terms of vibes wise in this one?
God.
Skeleton Crew. I'm being honest here. Skeleton Crew, yeah, objectively not a great show. Like in terms of like it was the most. I hate saying it. It was the most good Star Wars thing I think we've had in a while. I like it like Han
Hmm.
Solo, like the Han Solo movie. Just wait, you're not letting me finish here.
I haven't
The
said anything.
vibes, the vibes, the absolute world building, the pirates, the music, the cinematography, the ships, the kids. It feels like a fun adventure film that I relate to like old Star Wars. And that's what I'm trying to say. This here, I'm not trying to say it's better than Andor because it's obviously not. Don't twist my words here. But in terms of yeah, I know the face that you're pulling. If anyone's watching on YouTube right now, you can see the face he's pulling. But what I'm trying to say is, in terms of Andor, I objectively don't think it feels like Star Wars really at all. It feels like they're just set in sort of planets and stuff. I'm being honest, it doesn't feel like Star Wars, but it's great. You know what I mean? This feels like a show I'd watch on Apple TV or HBO. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like something set in the Star Wars universe. And that's I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I love it. But I'm just trying to say, in terms of, yeah, the vibes or the way that I perceive Star Wars, I'm not going to think of Andor at all. Like, it's not going to be the first one that comes to my head because I'll think of the original trilogy, I'll think of Anakin's story, and I would even to an extent think of the spin offs with like Han Solo and Skeleton Crew because they have that fun filled adventure. It's not dark and gloomy. You know, I'm not saying I don't want dark and gloomy. I love mature content stuff, but this is why like people have different opinions about what Star Wars is to them. This, I don't want to say it's not Star Wars because it is, but it's just not what I would first, my head would go to. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of other people would agree because you would go to an old person, you're gonna be like, "What is Star Wars to you?" They'd be like, "Oh, the original trilogy or Luke Skywalker's redemption of his father and all that kind of stuff." You know what I mean? No one's gonna think of Andor's sacrifices, and they're gonna think of the rebellion and kind of stuff in that way. And that's okay because it's still a great show, and I think Andor is rightfully perfect for Star Wars. But it's not going to happen every time. Like Clone Wars had serious arcs. Rebels had so much stuff linked to like here, and it still didn't feel like Andor. You know what I mean? Like we saw Saw Gerrera on projection on Yavin with Mon Mothma. We've seen Mon Mothma's speeches in Rebels. It didn't feel like this though. You know what I mean? And that felt more like Star Warsy. So I'm not. And Tony Gilroy has stated that he. I don't want to be mean, but like he didn't really objectively say he loves Star Wars, and that's
Oh,
why, in the sense that like it doesn't feel like this, if because he even said at some point when he was writing and shooting the show, he goes, "I forgot I was making a Star Wars thing for a second," which is fair enough, and that's the guy himself. You can't argue the creator. So in the sense of that, even he forgot at some points that he was making a Star Wars show. And I'm not trying to say it's bad. It's just yeah, it does feel like a realistic kind of war show and a spy show rather than a Star Wars thing, and that's fine because it's great and it's in Star Wars. Can't complain.
I got one thing to say out
Yeah.
of all of that you just
Yeah.
said. Skeleton Crew was garbage.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it
I don't,
was.
you know what? I'm gonna say this. Shut up. Just
Oh!
no. Don't be dissing. You
Whoa!
know why? Because you didn't grow up with the Goonies. You didn't grow up with adventure films, Super 8. You never watched them
I
films.
grew up at the same time as you, buddy.
Yeah, but did you watch them when you were a kid?
No, I watched
No.
Detention Air and I watched the Wiggles, and I watched
Exactly.
all of the other stuff that normal kids
So
do.
Skeleton Crew has a very special place in my heart for those kind of adventure films because objectively, when I get bored and go on Netflix and stuff, I watch The Goonies, I watch Super 8, I watch those kid kind of filled things. I've watched Stranger Things even. That's basically the vibes you get from it. And I loved it. Like it doesn't have to be like what's it called? A serious gritty thing. And that's what I'm trying to say. You can't call
Okay.
it garbage for having it. It's like calling Andor. It's like old mate that
No
we always talk
way.
about. No, it is. It's like
No.
old mate who we talk about way too much, unironically, not liking Andor because it's like you can't. He calls it garbage to for him, right? But we don't agree with that. So you can't be calling Skeleton Crew garbage when other people like that.
No, this is again, this is you were just talking about like, oh, Star
Ooh,
Wars. No,
ooh.
hang on, hang on. You were just talking about how Star Wars, it when you watch Skeleton Crew, you feel that way and you
Hmm.
enjoyed it. I'm just expressing my
Don't call it
side of it.
garbage though.
No,
Jeez.
it is my lowest rated show.
That's appalling. That's
It
appalling.
the quality was there, yeah, and the detail was there.
So you're saying that it's worse than season 3 of Mandalorian? Good.
Okay, I'm taking it back because that was a new. No, no, no. Okay, hang on.
I got him.
Hang on,
I
hang
got
on.
him.
Wait, I gave you your time. You give me mine. There's garbage and then there's hot garbage, and that's a title we've used on this
Yeah,
show
but
plenty of time.
you
In the
can't
hot
make
garbage
another column.
category is Mandalorian season 3, Acolyte, Book of Boba
Boba
Fett, and
Fett.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. This sits above that in the garbage
I
category,
think it
and then
sits above
everything else
that
is
as
above it.
I generally think like even me having so much fond stuff for the vibes of Skeleton Crew, it is, and not in a negative way, it is the most mid show. And that's a good thing, if that makes sense to me. I think it does what it wants to do perfectly. It just probably should have been released as a binge type of format rather than a weekly thing because it didn't. It doesn't have that kind of thing where it's like anticipatory, where it's like, oh, I'm waiting for the next week because of what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It doesn't have that. It's not that kind of show. It's like you put it on Saturday morning when you're a kid, you watch it, you go, wow, this is a fun little Star Wars thing. And then it gets you into the Star Wars franchise. That's what I feel like it does. And I feel like it does it well with the vibes. Anyway, we got
anyway, enough
way
about
distracted.
Skeleton Crew. Enough
We
about
got way
garbage.
distracted.
Um, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Okay, yeah. So Andor. Okay, first things first. Thank you to everyone who's checking out the live stream at the moment. Much
Yeah.
appreciated that you are taking the time to come and do that. Well, if you've just joined, you've missed a pretty
Rant.
a rant on Skeleton Crew. But we're done now. We're not going back to that ever.
Yeah.
Um, Andor season 2, the finale. We've already spoken about what a joy it was to watch.
Mhm.
I think you said before we started that you didn't really want to speak about epics episodically and more just let's talk about it holistically, which I think's a good idea.
Mm.
Um, I want to give you some of my thoughts first. So
Yeah.
I agree with the little comment we made before the podcast. This was not as good as last week's batch of episodes. I agree.
Mm.
My scores do reflect a higher quality, like higher score than last week, but I feel like I need to rewatch the series and re-rank it because
Yeah.
I would change a lot. I would change a lot. Um, I really, really, really appreciate what these last 3 episodes were. I know that you haven't necessarily loved the idea that I'm a Clea stan. But
Clay's great. She's good, but
she's a good
yeah.
character. I
Mm.
like that these episodes really honed in on her because at the end of Gorman last week, I was thinking, who of our main cast is left? There's Cassian, Mon, but we're probably not going to see her again. Granted, we did.
Mm.
Luthen, who's probably on the way out, Clea, and then on the other side we've got Dedra, and
Hmm.
that's it. And obviously K2SO was coming into that. But of our main cast that we've had since the start, we've lost quite a few. And Vel, I forgot about Vel.
And
Um,
the other guy, I keep forgetting his name. Melgish,
what?
the the
Melshi.
Melshi, Melgish. I was thinking
Mel.
of Melgosha from
I wouldn't
Minecraft.
classify Melshi as a main cast man. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh, he's in
Um,
Rogue One.
he is in Rogue One, but he's not one of the
His
main
story
like
is
6 or
actually,
7.
I would have liked his story is sick. By the way, meeting
Yeah,
in the prison,
yeah,
coming out to become a rebellion
yeah.
or in the
Pretty cool.
Rebel Alliance is
Pretty
crazy.
cool.
I love
Pretty cool. I agree.
it.
Hopefully, maybe a comic or something about him comes
Mm.
out.
He's cool.
But yeah, so I just I really appreciate what these episodes did. I think it was so emotional, and as much as I'm still a little bit on the fence about episode 10, as
Mm,
much as I did really like it, I'm still on the fence
yeah,
about if it
same.
was really good or if it was just good.
Yeah.
Um, but just the emotional weight that that episode had, and even carrying over into 11 and 12, and just and again, this is credit to Elizabeth Delau who plays Claire. Just the the pure pain that she has gone through and suffered and had to endure and go through. You can see that so evidently in 11 and 12. And we didn't see a lot of it throughout the season. We definitely didn't see it through
Mm,
season one. I'm so glad they utilized her more
mm,
because I just think she had such potential and she fit into this story so well, and I really, really enjoyed how they used her character. I'm glad she didn't die. I'm glad she didn't like wander off into the jungle, never to return.
mm,
I'm glad that her fate was left unanswered, but also she could still pop up. I'm not saying she's going to pop up in the future, but it's still undetermined where her path goes. So
mm.
I'm happy with how that ended, and we'll touch on
Yeah.
the final bit in a minute. But I think that last, just as a general thing, I think that whole last maybe 20 minutes of the finale was the most beautiful storytelling of the entire show.
Mm. Interesting. Okay. So I agree, especially with the point of saying, was it good or very good for episode 10? I thought I like. See, I liked the symbolism in terms of you got the backstory mixed in with what she's doing now. It's like, for example, when Luthen blew up the bridge, which was apparently on Naboo.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So, and then she blew up the
platforms
transport
at the
ships
hospital.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, to be as a distraction so she can get in and kill Luthen. I think it was great. But like I was saying to you before the podcast, and I'm conflicted on this too because as someone who watches a lot of media and stuff, I understand it and I sympathize for the character and I feel for the character. But at the same time, these time skips between the years and how we barely got any of her in previous things, it makes it hard to connect still in the sense that why all of a sudden we're getting backstory on her now when in season one there was not even a glimpse of her having a more developed than just the radio lady. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it does feel rushed, and I hate to say that because I still think it was story told perfectly, but trying to sit back from everything that all the emotional feelings that we have. No idea what that is. All the emotional kind of feelings that we have for the show kind of impact our opinions sometimes. So, in the sense that um, I'm just in the in the sense of kind of Claire's arc, I guess you could say. I would have preferred if it had a bit more of a build up, but at the same time, it was lovely in terms of Luthen's send off. But also, speaking of Luthen, how he died, like I know, man, that it's been years between each arc, and I know he's been working undercover still and doing stuff behind closed doors, but we haven't really seen much of that. So when
Yeah.
so when Bale, Mon, and Andor were all talking about the message in episode 11 and stuff, um, it was hard to be really like, oh, yes, Luthen was doing a lot still between those times. Yes, he would have still been active. But when we see in the show, because of the time 1 year skips, he hasn't done anything really. And then it's like he dies. So objectively, you're like, oh, he obviously has been doing stuff. But what you actually see, you don't actually, I don't think, feel as much. And you're like, oh, he's just already all of a sudden died. But it's not all of a sudden. It's because we've had the time skips and time jumps and everything.
Mm.
So it's hard for me to be like, oh, we didn't get much to see of Luthen what he was doing behind closed doors. But you just have to assume you have to paint that picture between the years. And I don't really like that. And that's why I think I don't know if you would agree with me, but your kind of rewritten thing that you were showing me and stuff before
Yeah.
kind of supports that theory. Like if we had more episodes and more stuff, you would have been able to develop them more, meaning
Yeah.
that this would have been even more impactful. Because I don't think his death was as impactful as it probably was portrayed or trying to be portrayed in the show
Yeah.
in that sense. And that's why I'm very conflicted on the sense of was this episode alone good? Or was it just kind of like was it really good or was it just kind of like, yeah. I mean, it was a great character arc, great character building for him. but I think it could have been done better. And I think the best moment in that episode for me was definitely when Luthen stabs himself, and definitely the interaction between Dedra and Luthen
Yeah,
beforehand, kind of how they're both playing the same thing. Like when he was like, "Oh, there are two things in this antiquity store or place that aren't meant to be where they are."
yeah,
Talking about himself and
yeah,
her. So like, I think that was perfect. I wouldn't call the Claire hospital scene perfect. I would call it good, but I'd call the stuff before it perfect in that sense of
yeah,
how he kind of he knew that if they were to take him in, they would have done some methods to be able to get information out of him, like even with the probe droid and stuff,
yeah,
or it like making his brain to mush and just getting the intel. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I think that
Yeah.
was a great way for him.
I
In
think,
term,
yeah.
yeah, but in
Sorry,
terms of like, as a whole, I don't think the you'll see it later. It's the lowest one for me out of the three, obviously, and
yeah.
yeah, it's noticeable. Mm.
Okay. I really like that you brought up the interaction between Dedra and Luthen because I was probably not, I totally forgot about that.
Mm.
It was brilliant. And the more I think about it
Oh,
and the
it's great.
dialogue coming from that, like even just you obviously mentioned there's two things that are, you know,
Not not
they're unsure if they're
unsure. Yeah,
real. And
yeah.
then even that thing with the knife when Dedra says, "Is it real?" And he
Mm.
says, uh, and still we don't know. And it's like, I'm like, oh, well, it's probably gonna be real and he's gonna stab himself with it.
Mm.
But yeah, that was great. And just the game, they were playing the game. But and this again speaks to the time jump.
Mm.
Dedra just found him. We didn't
Yeah,
see any
we
lead
didn't
up
see the
to it. We
progress.
heard we
Hmm.
heard that she got access to the
To
file.
an
She
email.
was scavenging as the word was given to her. But yeah, it was just out of nowhere. And it
Yeah,
was Lonnie. It was Lonnie who said there's
yeah.
there's
Forgot about
plans
Lonnie.
that the Dedra is planning a raid on Coruscant. It's like, oh wait, that
Oh,
happened
what?
really suddenly.
Yeah.
Where'd you get the intel? Like, and
Hmm.
this is stuff we need to see. So yes, I do completely agree. And the time jumps are very, very
Abrupt.
taking away from it,
Yep.
the whole season. But yes, Lonnie, quickly. Rest in
The
peace.
goat.
What a goat. He sacrificed I mean he didn't sacrifice as much as Luthen did, I
And
feel.
Andor. Yeah.
But goodness me, was he put himself in the face of the enemy for so long just to
Mhm.
have that fate. And
I
it was
actually
either
kind of
going to be
liked how he
Luthen
died.
killing him or it was
Mm.
going to be one of the ISB people killing him. But what a shame.
Actually, I was really happy when Luther did it. Not happy, but I was like, that's what you need to do
Yeah,
for secrecy and for everything. It's a shame because he just wants to get back, protect his wife and kid.
yeah,
But I think yeah, and it's quite funny. And now when you think of when you go back, I think when Diego Luna was like, when you go back after season 2 of Andor, you go back and watch Rogue One, it'll be different.
yeah.
For me, it's not gonna be different than I think on the level he's talking about in terms of Bix and everything later on. I would think now that the Death Star plans basically were initiated by Lonnie. Because
Yeah,
without
pretty
they
much.
basically gave that whole that whole starting idea of that they're building a massive weapon, and it was a Lonnie.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
funny. Mm.
Hey, Lonnie the goat, like you
Lonnie the
said.
goat. Mm-hmm.
Really quickly before we move on to some of the other stuff that happened, I want to talk about the ISB for a minute
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because they've been the face of evil. They have been the main antagonist. Obviously, we've
Mm-hmm.
had Dedra as probably the main antagonist, but we've had the ISB as the front for the Empire chasing down Axis,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. I find it very fascinating, and I don't know if you would have really paid attention to this,
Mm-hmm.
but the ISB by the end of this show is pretty much
In
gone,
shambles. Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, Blevin from season one, the guy
Yeah.
who was just awful.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently he got dismissed off screen. We didn't see it, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, Hit, the one that was under Dedra, who
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a like really in the last arc, which was crazy,
Yeah.
got killed
Once
by
again.
K2SO.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got Lonnie killed by
Mm-hmm.
Luthen,
Mm-hmm.
Dedra, prison,
Mm-hmm.
Partagaz offs
Off
himself.
himself. Yeah.
The only one who
That
survives of the
noob.
main ISB
Yeah.
is Captain Legret. And
Yeah.
the reason he survives is because he's friends with Krennic.
Yeah.
It was such a
It's
throwaway
so
line in the
funny.
second arc, but
Yeah.
he was friends with Krennic. No way he's going to die. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was fascinating that
Mm.
the ISB, they were this face of evil. They were so
Mm.
powerful, and that's how they ended up.
I really think that they probably could have made that kind of downfall of the ISB a bit more prevalent or a
Yeah.
bit more of like a wow. So unironically, because of their failures to basically prevent this information and prevent these rebels from starting like they disbanded themselves almost in the sense. But
Mhm.
they didn't make such a big dramatic thing about that when I think it is because from now on it's not really the ISB that's doing all of it. It's just the Imperial officers and
Yes.
kind of Lord Vader, and I guess in that kind of sense, trying to
Yeah.
clean up the mess with Tark and
Yeah.
everything. So yeah.
Well, there was again, I don't know. I don't know if it's a throwaway line or if you might have remembered it, but um in the Gorman arc, Partagaz says to Dedra, oh no, it was in the first arc, I think now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the sec I don't know. I'm confused. Man, I think it was the second arc.
Mm-hmm.
Partagaz says to Dedra because Dedra's like, I don't want Gorman. He's like, your
Oh
success here
yes.
will reaffirm the ISB side at the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And now that the ISB's gone to the dump, it's Vader.
Is
Vader's
Vader.
at the side of the Emperor. So I
And
just,
technically speaking, also too, this is when Tarkin kind of inevitably becomes a higher role too,
yeah,
because I don't know what they're called. It's when you know in A New Hope and everything, and you have kind of the Imperial officers with Tarkin and Vader chokes out one of them for talking negatively about the Force and everything.
Mhm.
Those guys sitting in that circle is similar to how the ISB worked in terms
Yeah,
of having different commanding chains and everything too.
yeah,
So in that
absolutely.
sense, but then also it would be interesting now if that's kind of the reason why Palpatine kind of branches out in terms of finding Thrawn and everything to have new higher commanding officers who are actually are smart and not just kind of people who just want to be like sheep and stuff, like people who are actually doing things for the sake of doing things. Like Dedra realistically is a sheep. She wanted to climb the ranks, but she did stuff with her own kind of opinions and stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
What?
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 Oh no, we don't want that fate for Bix and the
That'd be
kids. No
hilarious.
way.
That'd be funny.
That would be
Oh,
hilarious.
let's take a family trip to Alderaan. Boom.
Literally the next day as well. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Um, there's another scene that really captured my attention from these
Mm.
three episodes. Obviously the rescue mission was it was okay. It
Yeah, it's
wasn't
okay.
anything amazing, but it was
Mm.
pretty good.
Mm.
The thing that really caught my attention was the interaction between Dedra Miro and
Mm.
Director Krennic.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness me, was that tense? Was that so? This reaffirms. I know we see Krennic in Rogue One. He's kind of a bit of a toy,
Yeah.
but he's so menacing in this
Underutilized
show.
still in this season.
I agree,
So underutilized.
but I feel like we also got enough of him where it's like he made the impact he needed to.
When he showed
Episode
up.
one,
Yeah.
it was, the
The
importance of
Gorman.
Gorman. Then
Mm.
episode six, it was the party and kind of scolding Mon. And
Mm-hmm.
then these last few episodes, it was yeah,
Reaffirming that he is above Dedra
yes.
and how he doesn't, settle
Yeah.
with failures. Yeah.
Yeah, just the way he picked up Dedra's face and kind of shoved her down. I'm like,
Mm.
oh my God. Oh my God. That's
Poor Dedra, low
insane.
key. She gets kind of she gets kind of tormented a lot.
Dedra committed genocide on the Gormans, remember?
Well, she didn't.
Well,
Technically,
she gave the order
yeah, she
to.
gave. Well, yeah, passed down the chain of command.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I don't think she really wanted that either. She was only out for Andor and Axis. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, she didn't. But yeah, that was a fantastic interaction. And Ben Mendelsohn, in my Instagram review,
Mhm.
I said, this episode is exactly why you pay Ben Mendelsohn as much as he wants to be in the show.
Yeah,
Because his acting and his vocabulary is
he's
just
so
so
funny.
above everyone else.
Yeah,
It's actually insane. He was the
Mm.
best actor on the screen for most of this season.
Yeah. Realistically, yeah.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was it was crazy. It was crazy. Before we kind of move on into other stuff, just a big shout out to everyone who's checking out the live stream. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. Thank you. Much
Hmm.
appreciated. Drop your thoughts on the finale and on anything you might have missed in the comments below. We would love to hear what you think.
Of
We've had
course.
great interaction over the last 3 weeks that we've done this, and
Hmm.
yeah, hoping to continue the trend here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go through my notes actually. I've totally forgotten what else happened in this episode.
Episode
Um,
11. Yeah, what did we have in episode 11?
Episode 11.
Is that
I
when
said camera work. Why did I like the camera work?
is this when Andor and Val did their toasting and stuff too.
That was the finale. Actually, let's just move to the finale. Episode 11 was
What was
pretty
11?
straightforward.
No, now
It
I'm
was
confused.
they started the rescue mission and it was a lot of back and forth and the ISB kind of went into the gallery. So they
Oh,
learned
they
of
went to
that.
pick up the scraps, and that's when
Yeah.
they also almost tracked down Claire. Oh, this is also when Partagaz did off himself, and it was this
No,
episode,
no,
was
no. That was the finale.
was
That
it?
was the
Oh,
finale.
oh no,
But
this is
part
when they give the command for Claire's hologram. Yeah, when they say
yes.
put out a a bounty kind of in the sense that anyone who sees
Yes.
her and
Yeah.
say that she's diseased, which is actually crazy because he doesn't want to, it's a
Yeah.
smart choice from him.
I love that he is just generally trying to find a genuine reason, and then Partagas is just over here like, dude, shut up and just
And just do
make
this.
some BS up and do it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that at that point he knows he's stuffed. His
Yeah.
last remaining like
Is just an
capable
idiot.
ISB agent is an idiot.
Yeah.
He knows. He knows.
But
Oh,
oh well, this is also the episode when we actually got some cool action scenes with
K2.
K2.
Yeah.
Because K2 was menacing once again. I think okay, actually I'm not gonna say once again. He was menacing obviously when he was evil.
Hmm.
He wasn't that menacing in Rogue One. He was more charmingly strong.
Hmm.
Like, for example, when he took the grenade and just chucked it back like into the stormtroopers where he goes, I should have stayed at the ship. Like
Yeah.
he was kind of funnily evil in the sense. When this one
Yep.
here, he was almost like a bit scary, like, whoa, hold down,
Yeah.
K2. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
going kind of crazy holding the guy's body, getting
Yeah.
shot, even though he could have just not used his body. He did that deliberately.
He did, he did. And again, this again speaks to the 1 year gap because imagine if we'd just gotten an arc before the finale here
Hmm.
of getting more K2 development. It would
Because
have
obviously,
solved.
that instance there is one of few where he had to prove himself that he wasn't still
Mhm.
kind of evil and stuff. Because at the end, he was like, is this proof enough that I'm,
Yeah.
helping you guys? And so it's kind of like, oh, so what do we get before? What was the scene after he was reprogrammed and Cassian had the gun to him? Was everyone kind of a bit scared to go near him? What was the development of Cass? Because I don't think Cassian and K2's friendship was still really developed in this one that much in
No.
this show or arc to begin with. Because obviously, what we see when last episode where they take off to go to the Ring of Kafrini, yeah, basically we see him in Rogue One. You assume that they're best buds in the sense that they've been together for a while. Not best buds,
Wow,
but they've
yeah.
been together for a while. But in this, it makes it seem like it was only like 3 weeks. So it's
Yes.
like, what
Yes.
the hell?
Which
So
it was, yeah, it was strange
that's what I
how
mean
the
by
K2 story revolved.
yeah, that's what I'm meaning by rushed in a sense. Because when Andor was announced, I'm not saying it was a main thing, and obviously now it's not. Like I know for a absolute fact that when Andor was announced, obviously everyone didn't want to see it because like, why do we have a show about Andor? Um, but people were like, oh, it would be cool to see how Andor and K2 met and their relationship. When in hindsight now, after looking back at season 1 and season 2, oh, whoops, guys, that actually wasn't that big of a deal. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, seeing like I know that was a fact because I was one of them and I was watching like people theorize what the Andor show could be, and everyone's like, oh well, we're obviously going to get the friendship and the development of how because then even
No.
in season 1 when he got imprisoned by and like when he got choked by the
The
K extra, everyone's
KX,
like,
yeah.
oh, we're going to get development. That's probably going to be K2.
Yeah. No.
It was just a throwaway one again. It's like, holy, like no one could have predicted that in terms of like before season 1 came out, no one would have been able to predict season 1 or 2 for that matter because like
Just
everyone, if you imagine like before the show came out, oh yeah, we're going to get a lot of focus on Luthen. Huh? Who? What?
who? Yeah.
Like, because it's not even like a character from like if you said, oh, the main focus of the show is going to be like Bale and Andor, you'd be like, oh, well, I know Bale from
Yeah.
but like all these characters that you care about now are just nobodies to begin with, like from prior thing, which I guess is
It's
the
credit
point.
to the storytelling.
Yeah, yeah, but it's just funny, you know what I mean? Like
Mm,
how like
mm,
you would not be able to predict the outcome, but
yeah.
I guess if you want to go into finale talk,
Yeah. Let's do it.
I think it's up and down emotional for me. The last one, I think I had highs, very high highs. And I wouldn't say lows, but I'd say, oh, that's an interesting decision, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'll let you kick it. I'll let you kick us off.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing I'm gonna say is I cannot believe how perfectly how perfectly
Perfect.
the final shots of this show flow into
Mm.
Rogue One. It
Mm.
is incredible. It is.
Yeah, I'm
You
kidding.
watch the
I'm kidding.
Kafrini scene.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, that's the one thing I wanted to watch. It is uncanny
I
how good it
watched
is.
I watched Rogue. I know you bullied me for it. I watched Rogue One the night before because I knew that would link to Kafrini somehow. Because when I first played it and when we first see Andor and Kafrini, I was like, this planet, this guy,
Yeah.
why does this matter? This must be a thing
Yeah.
in tomorrow's episodes. And boom, boom,
Yeah. And
chakalaka.
even more to that, just like Andor's reaction in Rogue One saying Galen Erso, like
Yeah.
when Tivik says the name Erso, he only learned about the name Galen Erso like 20 minutes
20 minutes
prior, or
before.
like yeah,
It was a bit more, but yeah,
it was a
like
bit more,
minute
yeah. But it's
hours.
just
Yeah.
the fact that he had that react. Oh my, it was fantastic. And I just wonder if they started this entire show with this scene in
That
mind,
scene.
wondering, okay, we get here, we know we're going to lead into it. How do we make it as seamless as possible? And oh my
Well, that makes you honestly, in hindsight, that makes you question, oh, that must have been um so okay, it's either one or two things. It
God.
was either a plot hole or that they wanted to just skip over it completely on how Andor got there in think of Rogue One on its own.
Hmm.
If you look at that, when we first watched it, you were kind of like Galen Erso. Who is Galen Erso?
Hmm.
So you were in Andor in that sense,
Hmm.
but you're also like, who is this random ass guy?
Yeah.
Why is this rebel kind of esque dude killing this guy?
Hmm.
And why is this place so important? And why is that name important? Did they have a plan in mind that they were going to do like a thing to kind of make that make sense? And that's the forthcoming of Andor?
Maybe.
Or was that kind of just like they were just kind of using that as a throwaway and now they're like, oh, we can actually use this to tie our final thing into it?
Maybe. I mean, Rogue One was developed off of that small line in the crawl about a small batch of rebels stealing the Death Star plans.
Yep.
Maybe Andor was developed on the small line of Galen Erso.
Galen Erso
That
and
would be so funny.
and Tivik, who no one would have cared about, and now I kind of care about him because I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, old mate was harassing to try and get this information out, then dies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, just there's so many things I want to talk about with this
Mm.
episode, but I think the main thing that I want to just summarize with is this episode was a perfect finale, but it it didn't need to be that big explosive action. It
And
just
that's
needed to
what I wanted to
link.
talk to you about.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that when I finished the thing, that's the first thing I wanted to talk to you about
Yeah. It
because I was conflicted on it because I'm like, this is perfect,
yeah.
but it's not the big thing.
But so
Yeah.
the big thing was the Gorman. The Gorman,
Yep.
that was the big
Yep.
thing of the season. We got that last week.
Mhm.
All the last arc needed to do was to
Link.
wrap things up and link, and it did that
Mm.
perfectly. An
Mhm.
episode, the final episode, I would say the last 20 to half an hour,
Yeah.
where even it was just the conversations happening, nothing explosive, no real tension, but it sets things in motion. It sets up that recontextualization
Yeah.
of Rogue One. I love that word,
Well, I
recontextualization.
think I think in I think now more when we're talking about it now, I think what Diego Luna was saying about how you're going to re-see Rogue One differently, I don't think it's solely based on the Bix and his kid kind of aspect. I think it's because Rogue One is the final movie of the trilogy of season one of Andor, season two of
Mhm.
Andor, and then season three, quote unquote,
Rogue
Rogue
One, yeah.
One, which is the big fallout kind of finale in that sense. So this isn't really
Yeah.
the finale.
Good point.
This is the inciting incident, or as you would say in a kind of a you
Yeah.
got the climax and you got the resolution and
Hmm.
falling action and everything. This is when he is doing his strut here.
Yeah.
He is about to embark on this main climax of Rogue
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's why it looks cool when you're looking at it like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, the whole last bit of him walking through it, I thought it was nice, and the fact that we did get to learn the fate of pretty much all of the characters. Um, the one that perplexed me the most, and I'm sure it
Perplexed.
did as well, because
Yeah.
it was so out of place because we haven't seen this character for yonks now, was Perrin. And I find
Yeah.
it so
Yeah.
hilarious
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he ended up with Skeldon's wife.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
how weird would that be? Both of their kids are like um they're married now, but like it's both of their kids, but dancing.
It's
It's so
because,
weird.
well, it makes sense in the sense that it's like Perrin had to leave Mon because
Mhm.
he didn't want to get dragged down into
Yeah.
into her speech about the Emperor and stuff.
Hmm.
But then he also would have just put the blame onto Skolden because Mon went through Skolden for the money
Yeah.
stuff. So then
Yeah.
he's probably just like,
Oh.
if I'm just with his wife, it's a way for me to have someone at the same time not being controversial because she probably also doesn't want to be with Skolden because Skolden is probably getting dragged through the media now too with
Yeah.
being links to Mon funding the Rebel Alliance.
Yeah. And you know what? I've just thought of another thing. Like we can interpret this another way.
Mm.
Perrin always was like saying, accusing Mon of like having an affair. I wonder if he and the wife were having an affair. Wouldn't that just
At
be
the same time.
so
Yeah.
hypocritical of him? Like, damn.
I think he's more just trying to cover his butt
Probably.
to not get imprisoned. He's trying
Probably.
to basically cut ties with anything with Mon, and that makes you wonder what Mon's daughter is now thinking of
Yeah,
this whole
leader.
situation. Is she going to try to join the rebellion? Is she going to be a rich P word like the father? You know what I mean? Like you don't know. Like when
Maybe. Maybe.
like Mon's kid, I feel like should be not impactful, but have a perspective on this. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It'd be nice to see even like seeing Mon try to because actually now that I think about it, Mon just completely I know obviously it was a rush and she had to like just leaves her kid in a
Yeah.
corrupt society on Coruscant
Yeah.
with no thought or even a line being like, "Oh, what about my daughter?" It was more just because I'm assuming that she's still living in on Coruscant, like Mon's
Probably. Yeah.
kid. So it's like, what the hell? That
Yeah. It
she just
was a
completely
weird
dropped
one.
her daughter completely and was like, for every man for themselves. I'm with
Yeah.
Andor, sucked into
Yeah.
you.
I feel like that was why the wedding arc was so important because we had seen her just completely give up on her family there.
I
Because
guess.
clear her daughter didn't respect her.
Mm,
And yeah, I think that's why
I
it
guess. Yeah.
makes the wedding more important. And we don't talk about the wedding
Still,
because
wedding
it was
is.
too long. But
Yeah.
yeah. But yes, I think that was interesting. I don't know why that popped into my head, but that was probably my
Mm,
biggest reaction. I'm like, oh, parent? Oh, he's with her.
yeah.
Oh, that was interesting. Um, who else's fate? Obviously, we've spoken about Dedra a bit, ending up in
See Saw
prison.
kind of his impending doom that he'll
Yeah.
receive on Jeddah.
Not a lot of Forrest Whitaker this season. I thought we were getting a bit more.
And that's what I'm saying, man. If we had a more fleshed out season or more episodes, you'd have been able to see the other factions. And I think that's what Andor would have been even more better if you kind of see the compare. Like the only time you see a different faction is those weird guys in episode 1 and 2, or
Mhm.
and 3. They were
The
in the first whole arc
Flying Pay
almost.
Brigade, yeah.
Like and they're not the ones that you actually care about.
No.
But it would have been cool if they actually had a link to Yavin themselves, but we have no idea how Yavin. This is okay. This is a happy moment of celebrating Andor's successes, but is also its own fate when we don't get to see key stuff that I still want to know more information about. So
Yeah.
it's like there's so much things that we missed out on. Like even Tay Colmer, I want us to see how he died by Cinta. I like little things like this. You build a character up for a season or whatever, and it was an important plot point for the financial kind of stuff, and then you don't see the outcome of it. Or
Yeah.
like even Luthen, what made the Rebel Alliance so against Luthen in that time period before what's it called after he saved Mon with Andor? What
Hmm.
what in between that period that year? What made Luthen go a bit crazy in the sense that they were trying to say that he was a bit delusional and stuff? Because we never really got that. He looked
No.
all calculating and cunning, but he never really was delusional, apart from the sense of he did probably put too many trackers in different people's offices, which is obviously what led to them having to remove it. But
Yeah.
we never really got the sense that he was like crazy or anything. We get that sense with Saw every time he's talking to him, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But like, yeah, Luthen, you don't really get that. So I'm like, why did they hate Luthen so much?
Yes.
I don't know. There's unanswered stuff, I think, when it comes to that.
There is unanswered, and obviously, I mean, probably won't get an answer, but
No,
and yeah, this is where at least one more season would have been
one more
beneficial. But,
season. Yeah.
yeah. So, I'm trying to think who else's fate did we get?
I mean, I guess you also know that Val is going to be surviving and fighting with
Yeah,
on Yavin with them.
I quite liked how Vel was incorporated into this finale. When she showed up first, to see, can't
Yes.
remember who she first saw. Maybe it was Cassian.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh
Oh
yeah,
no,
you still
Mon.
exist.
Was it Mon? Because then Mon sent her to go to Cass.
Yeah, it would have been Mon.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was that moment of realization, like, oh yeah, you're still here. But
Mm.
I think that the way she was handled, and obviously she's not a very important character, but I don't know, I liked how she was utilized to get to go through Mon to
Yeah.
Cassian, and I
Hmm.
loved that interaction between Vel and Cassian that they were
Yeah.
toasting the Aldani. They didn't toast to Skeen, which I thought
Because
was interesting.
he was a dodgy bugger. That's why.
Mm. And
Yeah.
Vel must have believed him
Yeah.
because I know there wasn't really that belief initially,
Maybe at
but
the
yeah,
time, yeah, she wouldn't have believed Andor, but over time, knowing Andor's character, why would
yes,
he want to? Why would he lie? That wouldn't get him any. Like, if anything, if he lied about him and
yep,
defended him, then I might be a bit like, oh, that's why not a trusting character at all.
yeah.
Andor's never, and that's what's funny, right? You look at Andor. What would you call Andor? Like as a character, like in the sense of you got Han, smuggler, and then rebel hero. I wouldn't call Andor a rebel hero. I wouldn't call him a smuggler. I, I would almost
Somewhere in the
call
middle.
I would call him a rebel agent or spy.
I would call him a rebel captain or
But see,
rebel leader. Rebel
yeah,
leader.
see when you say that, I assume then he's like a rebel pilot, kind of like a captain, like Pro Dameron or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
See, that's what's interesting about Andor. Like he's not like I look at Andor, I don't think of untrustworthy. I look at Han, I don't know if I full trust him at the start. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can fully believe Han. I don't think I can fully believe Hondo. Hondo is an untrustworthy character, but you know that if he's working with you at the time, he will help you. You know what I mean? But with
yeah,
Andor, I don't know. Like he keeps to himself. He's not that expressive. He's trustworthy, but no one really trusts him. Like,
mm,
still, no one trusts him in the on Yavin about
yeah,
why would he lie about a super weapon? What
mm,
does that benefit him in terms of his life if he made up a lie about the Empire?
yeah,
Like, and that's what I'm saying. What makes him untrustworthy? Like, is it? I don't know. Is it because he kills people? But in that sense, everyone's killed people. You don't trust anyone then. Like,
yeah.
I don't
Exactly.
know. It was
Definitely.
very interesting. By the way, guys, I said everyone, as in in Star Wars franchise, not saying everyone us here.
Oh my goodness. Uh, I I'm not gonna share this on the podcast. I do want to show you my reaction later, Jack.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah,
I just yeah, the ending in particular, because we haven't really spoken much
mm,
about that. Um, I know you kind of predicted something along the lines
yeah,
of that last week,
yeah,
but just to actually see it and I personally felt there was a lot of weight to that.
yeah.
um, because of now what it means for Cassian, and more importantly, what it means for Bix.
Bix more,
I
yeah.
think that because I just assumed she was leaving to her own space, but seeing her go back to Mina Rao to be with B and to be with her baby just was beautiful.
Well, it makes sense going back to there because at first I was like, why would she go back there?
Yeah,
And then I thought about it because the Empire has already kind of swept that planet too, in terms of like they know that they got away and they killed Brasso, and they kind of believe that they're imperial favorite, like in terms of what's the word, like supporters.
yeah,
They have no reason to go back to a in the middle of nowhere farm now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
she will be safe. So yeah, it makes sense.
It did make sense. And also with the audit thing happening every like 10 years, obviously the Empire's not going to be there long
Yeah,
term. So
yeah.
yeah, I thought it was a beautiful way to wrap up her story after last week when it was kind of a bit, oh, she's leaving that way?
But yeah, but see, that's the thing, and that's what we talked about before the pod.
Mm,
Like the kid, having the kid is such a, I wouldn't say cop out, but it is such a generic story thing where it's like, oh, the hero and his partner, they go away from each other. Oh, next minute they have a kid, and then that guy dies. Oh, you already know he dies. It's like, oh, that's meant to. Exactly the same thing with Iron Man in Endgame. When I saw that he had the kid, I was like, he's dead. He's gonna die
Yeah.
at the end of this movie. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, you just know because it's meant to deliberately make you feel more emotional. And that's when I don't be more emotional because I'm looking at it as like a plot device more
Goes
than an
like
actual.
this.
But you know what I mean? Because it's deliberately made to have that kid show up is to make you feel more sad when he dies in
Yeah.
Rogue One. And
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, I don't want to get baited by that. So I would have probably almost preferred if Bix left because she knew in her heart that there was a higher power and calling, which it was for Andor. But now it's almost like, oh, she just left because she had a kid and she then knew Andor would have stayed.
Yeah.
So that's it's like it's a hit or miss. I will love it at times, and then I probably won't like it at other times. So like when I go
Mm.
back and watch Rogue One again later on because I've watched it beforehand now, I don't want to watch it again. What's it called? Now that when I watch it back later, I might feel a bit more for Andor, but for the kid. But at other times, I probably won't because I'll feel more about them and their story, what they had to sacrifice before. And I
Yeah.
feel like the kid's just that little extra thing that they're like, oh, let's just add some salt to that wound for
Yeah.
when you feel sad for him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No, that I do understand that perspective.
Mm.
Um, maybe it does seem a little bit cheap, but also it is almost you could flip it the other way. It isn't
Yeah, that's what I'm
salt
saying.
on
Yeah.
the wound, it's icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that
what I'm
was a
saying.
beautiful analogy.
It's
Oh my goodness.
that should, you know what? That's going to be my quote for what's it called for episode 12. It's either icing on the cake or salt on the
Salt on the
wound.
wound. I like it. I like it.
And people are going
All
to be
right.
like, "What?"
And then you say, check out the podcast.
Check out the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
And gives it a 10 out of 10 still. What?
All right, let's on the topic. Let's give our
Yeah, yeah.
scores for the episodes. So we'll start with episode 10. Um, do you want to do it at the same
Yep.
time? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll count down. I'll count down. All right, three, two, one, eight.
6.5.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well, that's not surprising, is it? How's that
Holy
not?
moly.
I only care about the Luthen and Dedra scene at the start, and then when she unplugs him. That's basically it. Like Clay is a cool character, but I thought we needed to get more development of her earlier, so I didn't resonate as much as I would have liked to. I don't really care
Damn.
about also Luthen's backstory or where he initiated from. Didn't look that interesting to me. He was just another what soldier on a different planet killing innocent people, or at least having to witness it. I don't know. It didn't do it for me as much as I think it could have.
Huh.
Mm.
I don't like that.
I don't like
No, I
that.
don't. That doesn't sit well with me.
And
Um,
live with it, deal with
li
it,
live
breathe.
with it. Breathe. Let it run wild, as Saw says.
Yeah,
Okay, episode 11. Do you want to count down this time?
I'm actually not really sure I'm going to give it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay, I have one. Yep,
Mhm.
3, 2, 1,
Eight and
8.
a half. Okay.
A
All
bit
right.
closer. Yeah,
We're
a bit
closer.
closer.
Yep. I think it was better because it featured pretty much the whole cast, and
Yep.
it was really this wrap-up episode now. So,
Yep. It
um,
wasn't that interesting, but it made more sense when I felt like episode 10 was. It made sense, but it wasn't as interesting for me in that
hmm,
sense. So it's like a reverse almost for those two.
interesting. Interesting.
Alrighty. Alrighty.
And
Last one.
I feel like we're gonna give us a high score here. Three, two, one,
Nine
10.
and a half.
Oh wow. Okay. Good
Only
job.
because of those critiques that I said earlier. I felt like if it was a bit longer, less rushed, 10 easy.
Hmm.
I felt like it did zoom over some ideas very, very quickly. But yeah, nonetheless, it's basically perfect. But I look at One Way Out. I look at I forget the name of it, episode 8, and they're
Who are
just
you?
yeah, from start to finish, I think they're a bit more concise.
Mhm.
They're perfect. You know what I mean? This one here, ending was perfect. Start, not so much.
Fair enough.
But not. I don't want to say it like that because then it sounds like I hate it. It's 9.5 still. But it's almost there. It's almost
Yeah.
the perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
So I'm now looking at our completed scores for
Have you
this
tallied?
show. I have tallied, and I will share this information with you now. So,
Okay.
um, your highest ranked episode was episode 8, which was a 10 out of 10. Who are you? Your least ranked episode, which was a 6 out of 10, is actually a tie between episode 2, Sigourney Teema, and episode
Mhm.
4, Ever Been to Gorman.
Interesting. Yep.
Your total score out of 120 was 92 and a half, which gave
See,
you an average of 7.71 per episode.
but see, that's the thing. We haven't re-ranked season one yet after now this. Because
We
now
need to.
all of them would be higher, meaning
Yeah.
that my overall score will be higher, but these ones will probably end up being lower in total. So
Yes. Well, maybe we need
yeah.
to keep that in mind when
We do it
we.
next week.
Yeah,
There's
we'll
a
do it next week.
ranking tier.
Yep.
Oh,
Watch.
wait, guys, before he goes into the next thing, we did talk about after Andor season two would come out, we'll do a redo with movies and shows together combined
Yeah.
because we wanted to get more shows because we haven't done Scale to you. I know where you're going to put that, but but yeah,
Garbage. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, we'll do a combined one.
yeah.
Probably yeah, next week would be a good one to
Yeah.
do. We'll
Hmm.
set something up. Um, okay. My one, I had three 10 out of 10 episodes. So it
Hmm.
was episode 4, Ever Been to Gone, the one that you didn't like. Episode
Yeah, hated
10,
that one.
oh sorry, episode 8, Who Are You? And the finale. They were my highest, and my least favorite was a three-way tie between Sigourney Teema, episode 2. I Have Friends Everywhere, which was episode 5. I feel like I would probably change that now.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think that deserves to be. What? Well, you didn't say what it was a tie between ranking wise, score wise. You just said three-way
Oh
tie.
yeah, 6.5, 6.5.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and then Messenger, which was episode 7.
Oh.
So that's all
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
So my total score was
Mm.
98.5 out of 120, which gave me an average of 8.21 per episode.
I think we
And I think
both.
that's fair. I think that's fair.
I think. Okay. I was gonna say. I think mine. I would like mine to be higher because I haven't. Yeah, re-ranked. Because season one, I was interested to know where season two would go, and that first arc of season two just instantly made me realize how good season one's arcs
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
So
We
it's just
we
like I can't.
absolutely I'm even gonna create a thing now. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna pop it in our little document that I have of all our
100%.
scores and say,
Needs a
yeah, let's
redo.
do Andor season 1.
Yeah,
Let's do
because
that.
because I think when you have a comparison of a complete thing, it's a lot different. Like imagine saying Mandalorian is the best thing ever, and then you got season three, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, season three was not that good.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Actually, we didn't even do the first show we did this ranking was Ahsoka. Goodness
See,
me.
that's what I'm saying. We got some things to go. We got some stuff to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I
I
thought
guess
there was
that's
something else I wanted to mention, but maybe not.
wrap it up then. I
Yeah.
guess. Hmm.
Yes. All right. Well, as sad as it is to say, that's the end of Andor ever.
Hmm.
And, as much as we will get more Star Wars shows and Star Wars movies, they probably won't ever be this high quality. So,
Hmm.
yes, it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute honor. It's been an
Hmm.
absolute joy to watch it and share this with you, Jack, and
Hmm.
to share it with you, the audience as
Yeah.
well, and those who listen and contribute every week. And yeah, really appreciate what you guys have done for us
Hmm.
and also just for Star Wars as a
Yeah.
as a community. So yes, a big thank you to everyone. And
Hmm.
yeah, next week we'll do some more ranking.
Yes, sir.
All right.